Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out on a Sunday afternoon. I know many of you have already been here this morning, and so to come back at 5 o'clock on a hot August day, we really appreciate it. We also really appreciate the speakers giving up their time and putting together some presentations. I have been working with Encore Park basically since December of 2019. Came in as a capital campaign consultant about middle of last year, was made interim executive director. And so one of the things we thought would be helpful, because it's very helpful to what we're trying to do in terms of planning for Encore Park, is to really consider what's going to be happening around the church and around the neighborhood. And today, you've got three people who are going to be talking a little bit about what's going on in downtown, the parks that are being built in downtown, and then the developments that are going on around downtown. We're all going to try and speak for about 15 minutes. I'm going to follow up then with a presentation on Encore Park. And the one thing I would ask is if you will hold all the questions till the end, then we can get through all of the presentations, and we've allotted probably 20, 30 minutes for Q&A, depending upon how quickly we get through everybody's presentations with their slides. We have three speakers. And first of all, Dustin Bullard, who is Executive Vice President for Downtown Dallas, Inc., is going to be starting first. He will be followed by Patrick Todd, who is Managing Partner with Todd Interests. For those of you who may have noticed an uptick in the amount of traffic around the church, he'll be telling you a little bit about that, what's going on over at Blockhouse. And then Amy Meadows is the president and CEO of Parks for Downtown Dallas, and she's going to be talking about the parks that Parks for Downtown Dallas has already built, as well as the Harwood Park, which is directly across the street from us. And then I'm going to be doing cleanup with a little update on Encore Park. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Dustin to come up here and start us off with what's going on in downtown Dallas. So thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Amos, and thank you all for being here tonight. As Michael said, I'm Dustin Bullard with Downtown Dallas, Inc. I'm going to give you all just a very quick rundown of DDI. I would get in trouble if I didn't tell you all the great things we do as an organization and then talk about the neighborhood as well, what we see today, and then what we see in the future. And I'm going to leave some details to our friends and partners, both Amy and Patrick. One side note, I have been with DDI about 10 years, but I live 3 blocks from here and have lived in downtown since 2004. So I'm also, I work here, but I'm also a neighbor and walk my dogs by the church almost every day. So good to be here. So DDI, we are a nonprofit. We're really the primary advocate and champion of downtown. I'm going to blow through these slides really quickly and talk through more of the neighborhood. But we've been around about 60 years, not quite as long as your congregation here, but we really have been on the leading edge of driving downtown. A lot of the things you see here are our teams. Our main focus area, though, is within the freeway loop. So about 80% of our funding comes from what's called a public improvement district. Property owners every 7 years elect to pay a small incremental additional property tax that goes to fund the services that we provide. And then we have a volunteer membership base that funds about 20% of that additional. A lot of the folks that you see, though, are my teammates, our security team on the Segways and the bikes that are down, and work very closely with a lot of staffers who I see in the congregation here or the pews today. But these men and women are really the face of our organization. And you can see here, you can always call our dispatch number, but we've got about 55 full-time officers. We're responding to anywhere from about 3,000 requests for services and provide about 90,000 hours a year in additional patrols. Our homeless outreach team is a relatively new team. Again, really plugged in here with a lot of the great things you all do at the Stewpot and other partners in that arena. You can see there, it's just right off the screen, but we've already reunited about 220 folks through our Homeward Bound program and provided about 4,000 hours of direct outreach services. So we really see our role there is partnering with other folks in the social services and the homeless outreach continuum to really place our neighbors that are experiencing homelessness into services. Our clean team here, as well as about 12 individuals. You see them on the litter vacuums, the pickup trucks, the golf carts, patrolling the parks and the litter within the public space. And our CSA Now. So if you have the dispatch number or the app, you can get all of those field employees. So I think that's always really important as you walk around the facility here or you experience downtown. It's important to know who's behind kind of keeping downtown clean and safe. So let's talk about what you invited me here to talk about. So here's a snapshot of where we are today. As we sit within, if you remember that map, within the freeway loop, we have about 13,000 residents today. We have 50 residential properties, 139 commercial office buildings, 28 hotels, and 30 active projects. And we'll get into some of that here shortly. What we've seen, and this is always a question, through COVID, we have not really seen a contraction in this market. Our residential has not experienced really much of a blip at all. We still, any stabilized residential property is over 90% leased today. Our hotels are probably our hardest hit industry sector within downtown right now because we are not having a lot of business or convention travel. However, we have seen a very big increase in families traveling, kind of regional destinations. And so our hotels have seen an uptick in the last couple quarters. So I thought it'd be helpful to kind of look and place you all here in the yellow, and let's talk about kind of what's around you, just in case you drive down and you park and you don't get outside much around the church property here. So I think what's really interesting is you all sit in a really kind of unique fulcrum almost of the neighborhood. You've got all the amazing things that's transformed in the Dallas Farmers Market. We'll hear a lot from Patrick on the East Quarter, and then our main commerce Elm Corridor as well, where we have a lot of residential. However, I think as you look, you sit in one of the highest concentrations of residential units in the entire downtown area. So as we look here, the orange color on the map is highlighting any building that is currently a residential property, and the blue is rental is orange, and blue is condos or townhomes, for sale units. So right there, we've got almost 3,600 rental units just shown on this map. You've got 246 owned units, and we estimate that to be a little over 5,000 people living in the area that you can see there on the map. So, in some areas of this state, that's a small town around your church facility here. So I think that that's really interesting, and what we continue to see, and again, you'll hear from Patrick and others, is additional residential, which I'll show you in a minute. I also think it's always interesting to kind of look at what our breakdown is in both age and race. Downtown is very diverse. It's diverse in age and in race and ethnicity. So, roughly you're at 19%, a demographic between 35 and 44, 33% between 25 and 35, and 11.5, 45 to 54. And then your splits are on the upper and lower end. One thing we do see in the farmers market, especially in the townhomes, is a higher concentration of families living in those units because there's an ability to have 3 and 4 bedrooms there in those particular areas. Overall, downtown, we have 9,600 rental units, 1,000 owned units, and again, an overall population of about 13,500 folks. With our race and ethnicity breakdown, again, a relatively diverse neighborhood, really stacks in line with the city to some degree. 57.5% white, 27% black, call it, 16 Hispanic, 6% Asian, and about 3% 2 or more races. So again, a really diverse. I think sometimes downtown has a stereotype that it's monolithic. It's all young, hip kids living down here right out of college, and the numbers don't bear that out necessarily when you look at it as a whole. We also have a lot of empty nesters that choose to downsize and come downtown. So there's what we have today. And then I also thought it would be interesting to kind of look at things other than residents around your facility here. So what we've got is Thanksgiving Square, again, an institution you all are probably very familiar with, just top left, the Jewel Hotel, Main Street Garden Park, which was really the first urban park that we built. Amy's going to talk about all the great additions her organization has helped create for downtown. The Statler Hotel, Hampton Inn Hotel, Fairfield Hotel, the Dallas Farmers Market, the futsal fields at the Dallas Farmers Market, Deep Ellum Dog Park, and the Deep Ellum Community Garden that DDI sponsored and helps with both of those facilities as well. A couple really unique things that are really brand new. The Sova Hotel, which is up there on Commerce Street right here, pretty small development, not associated with the East Quarter, within the East Quarter, but not a Todd development project. That is a micro hotel. So I think they have 20-ish rooms that are extremely small, and they should be opening relatively soon, but they're really entering the market. It's a new product for the Dallas market in this region, so we're excited to see how that rolls out here in the coming weeks. Lighthouse, which again is just across the street here. You've probably seen a whole lot of activity. We're really excited and proud of that project. I won't take any thunder from Patrick's presentation, but again, an amazing facility that has been beautifully restored, and we're now seeing a lot of traffic there. Future developments. So again, here you all are highlighted right here in the yellow. Couple things. Again, East Quarter, probably one of our largest developments in downtown from an acreage perspective, and from having partners in the Todd team who are well-versed in downtown and do tremendous projects. We're excited about the East Quarter, and I know you'll hear more. 42 Real Estate also has some land holdings in and around the East Quarter area. They own the building Sova Hotel is going in, and then some additional parking lots. They were recently in the news with some conceptual drawings for an office complex over there. I don't have renderings in this presentation, but it is out there in the Dallas Morning News. Harwood Park, we'll hear about from Amy here shortly. Adjacent to Harwood Park, there's a parking garage that, quite honestly, and I know I'm being recorded, but it looks a little unfinished. Next to the Dallas Morning News, next to the Statler. It is unfinished, but people are parking in it. That is designed, and we anticipate future residential use above that. That was slightly delayed, but is currently going through some development processes at the city of Dallas. So we're excited to get that on. That's right there at Jackson. Next to you all, just to your west, on the parking lot that you all don't own, that the Hamilton's group owns. I have a rendering there, but we're currently working with that development team on residential apartments, about 220 or so. It is also currently in the pre-development stages at City Hall, and so we're excited about that. The purple down on the bottom is a potential education use. DISD, as you may or may not know, passed a bond to create a downtown education campus, which would be everything. We have Ida B. Wells Montessori, which we worked very hard. That's at the UNT right now in a temporary home, which is pre-K through second grade right now, and has a waiting list to get in. So DISD would be consolidating campuses potentially in and around the area of City Hall there. I have 14 condos under development just behind you all there, and those are going up right now. And then the farmers market, currently where the North Texas Food Bank is, that building will be coming down, and additional apartments will be going up, and that just went through approval processes at the city. So again, you see a lot of diversity here. As I kind of kicked off the presentation, you get a lot of residential use around you in addition to the farmers market. We're seeing infill on some of these additional lots with some additional residential and mixed use in the East Quarter. So a lot going on there. A few other really big projects that you've probably already heard about. I know members of the congregation are involved with. TxDOT is working on what to do with I-345, which was the highway, the overhead highway that really separates downtown and Deep Ellum. So that study's underway. Feedback is welcome on their website. We're also working with TxDOT and the City of Dallas on reconstruction of the I-30 Canyon, which is the freeway that severs downtown from the Cedars. And so we're working there to look at additional decking opportunities, much like Clyde Warren, or even small structures that could further knit downtown with the Cedars. That project is also ongoing. High-speed rail in the Cedars and its connection into downtown. The City of Dallas is also working on a convention center master plan that currently is in the public input phase, and there's a meeting in 2 weeks that will be virtual as well to provide feedback there. Future mixed use, a very large holding there at the old Dallas Morning News campus, which is Ray Washburn. We're excited about that as well, and its adjacency to the convention center. And then the future mixed use here highlighted south of City Hall is Hoke Global with new park development, which has also been in the paper, but could be a very significant mixed use high-rise development very close to you all. And then DART D2, which I know this church has been very active in over the years, and many of your members are still active in that project. So you can see we've got a nice, strong approved line here, and then it kind of flares out as refinements continue on that project. So I didn't want to nail anything down on that. So Mill Creek, this was the project I alluded to on the parking lot to the west of your property. So you can see the churches just behind this image here. This is Young Street, the Stewpot, and the Encore Park facilities off to the right there. So a really pretty building. There have been changes already to this as it continues to grind through the planning phase, though. AT&T Discovery District, I did not mention, but if you all have not been down to the AT&T Discovery District, I really recommend it. It really is a kind of new, amazing amenity food hall with about 22 food operators, amazing public space, a large video wall, really changing the dynamic of the southern edge of downtown. So, walk down there, drive down there, check it out. The National at Thompson Hotel, another phenomenal project by the Todd team. Also now where Downtown Dallas Inc. office is out of. That's the old First National Bank building on Elm Street. The only reason I highlight that, that was the last large vacant building that needed to be redeveloped in downtown. And so we're really excited that that project has now opened. When I moved here in 2004, we had about 20 buildings that the lights were out on, and that was one of them. So we've accomplished a really big task in getting these buildings back online, and that's very important to the neighborhood and the future of this city. And then I mentioned the Montessori. Again, we're very excited about Ida B. Wells and DISD's commitment. I was just on a call with the DISD team and their principal on Friday of last week, and they are amazed by the wait list that this school is already generating. And they will continue to add a grade every year that the school moves forward. So it's great to have additional kids downtown and learning downtown and using this environment as a classroom. And that's a choice school. And that's all I have. I probably took a little bit more than 15 minutes. I'm sorry. Thank you. And Patrick Todd will be next.
Great job. Well, we're getting set up here. I'll just give you a little background on Todd Interests, our firm. We started in 1990, so 30 years in business. We're a real estate development and private equity firm. We're based just down the street in a building not quite as old as this one, but the U.S. Post Office and Federal Courthouse building, which is a project we did about 10 to 15 years ago now. Family-owned business. We like to say we're a family office comprised of many families. It's been really fun to work there for the past 7 or 8 years now. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about East Quarter, but Dustin mentioned some others that you may know our firm from just being downtown as the stalwarts of the first people down here. The National, Dustin showed a picture of his office from our project there. Kidding. One Dallas Center, Tower Petroleum, the Post Office. And so we've been based downtown for about 10 years now and are just very thankful to be a part of this community. East Quarter is the one that's probably most relevant to you all, given we're your next door neighbors. But we set out, I was sitting in my car just behind this Longhorn about 7 years ago. Longhorn was not there yet, but was trying to get from Victory to Deep Ellum, and was stopped in my car and just looked around, wasn't texting or listening to radio or anything, and just saw these beautiful buildings and said, why have I never stopped here before? Seems to be in the center of so much going on and charming buildings, but at the time were pretty much all vacant. So set out about 5 years ago now to purchase 32 properties that are contiguous from 6 different owners over the course of 2 years. We partnered with JP Morgan Asset Management as our equity partner, Royal Bank of Canada on the debt, so very institutional, with the thought process of saying, hey, Dallas doesn't have necessarily a sophisticated, upscale, urban neighborhood that's very much authentic to what it was from the day it was built. So our buildings, as you see here in the foreground, pretty much everything you see in the front of it, let's see, there we go. So all of these, and this is a rendering of what is coming to life now. We're just back over here in the church now. These were all built in the 19-teens and 20s. Blockhouse next door is our newest building from 1940. But what these buildings have in common with their peers across Dallas in Deep Ellum and West End is their age. What's a little bit different is their original use. If you think of Deep Ellum, industrial from the day it was built. Single story, highly efficient to store things in. West End, manufacturing. East Quarter was Automotive Row in Dallas in the 1920s. So the highest grossing Cadillac sales in the entire United States in the 1920s came out of this 3-story building, which is now the headquarters for a tech company. And when you walk in their offices, on the ground floor, set in stone, is the Cadillac emblem. So if you think about retail in the 1920s, they didn't have glass panels and LED lights. They had excellent stone craftsmen, masons, woodworkers, all of those things. And so we were able to take these buildings that have been largely untouched for 50 to 60 and even 80 years in some of them and bring them back to their natural splendor. And so far, we've really created a home for the innovative, technological, different companies in Dallas that say, hey, we want awesome office space, but a glass tower doesn't fit our MO as a culture. One building that you guys know very well is your next door neighbor. We dubbed it the Blockhouse after it was a Masonic Temple since its inception in 1942. We spent 18 months restoring the building from a facade standpoint. You may remember kind of the top header here was just black with soot, having never really been cleaned since it was created. It's 46,000 square feet, an absolute fortress, which is why we chose the name Blockhouse. As you see it today, as it's more full of energy than it's probably ever been since the day it opened. We've partnered with a company called Lighthouse Art Space. And so they right now have a museum exhibit called Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience. And what it is a 3D digital projection mapping. So you walk in a room and all the walls have projection screens displaying on them. And it's someone's gone through and essentially hand illustrated Van Gogh's works into a movie or show where the images are rotating around you, set to live music as well. The set designer from Hamilton is their creative partner who helped design the show. And so we're really excited about them. While Van Gogh is an exhibit, they'll continue to have other artists roll through. So at the beginning of next year, you'll see a new artist come through. And they'll have this as a very long-term deal, but trying to be a new age museum. We're very thankful to have them. If nothing else, for an activity standpoint, they sold, I think, 100,000 tickets before they opened their doors. And so if you guys have not been yet, it's a great thing to walk across the street and see. This is a map proper of East Quarter set out in orange as we sit here. Van Gogh exhibit there. Amy's going to talk to you guys about Harwood Park. And then 300 Pearl is our newest development coming out of the ground in the middle. Keep going. All in all, it's about 14 acres of land. This is just a kind of a glimpse of the buildings we inherited and kind of how they look today. I mentioned showrooms, automotive showrooms. This building was originally the kind of final assembly step for Cadillacs as they were being sold. They'd ship all the parts here, put on the mirrors, touch up the paint, the car was ready to go. And then they would drive it across, you can see the alley here, this is that 3-story building. They would drive it across a bridge on the 3rd story to the showroom and lower it down to the ground floor to be sold. This office is now home to interior architects on the ground floor, and then a company from Los Angeles called Therabody, they're a tech wellness company, is moving their headquarters to the top 2 floors at the end of this year. Another example, this is the intersection of Cesar Chavez, going north-south here, and Commerce going east-west. This is just a Google image from when we purchased it. And if you were to walk out there today, it looks a little different. So this is a company called Dialexa, who's Dallas's top tech consulting company. And they took all 4 buildings, we connected all 4 of them for 24,000 square feet. We had a swath of land over here that wasn't big enough for parking. And so we said, hey, we had some concrete, let's turn it into a bocce ball court. Just trying to do little kind of pocket parks to give people a chance to gather outside. And on Fridays, once a month or so, we'll drop a couple of Yetis full of cold beer and Topo Chico for the tenants to go out and hang out together. This ever-present panda bear is by an artist named Richard Orlinsky, and he's the top-selling French contemporary artist in the world over the last 10 years. However, he did not have a piece on display in the United States. So we get asked a lot of times saying, hey, what's the significance of a red panda bear in the middle of Dallas? And there's nothing specific to it other than trying to say, hey, we want something that people look at and smile and a place to gather. So as we bring on restaurants online in East Quarter, which the first of which is about to open, I'll tell you about, our hope is that people say, hey, let's meet at the Red Panda and figure out if we want to get ice cream or coffee or where we want to eat dinner tonight. But also choosing to say, let's have public art that is valuable and worthwhile, we can all gather around. These are some of our existing tenants. I mentioned a few of them: Dialexa, Tech Consulting, Therabody, Tech Wellness, Interior Architects. They have a very self-descriptive name. Order My Gear is in the building that the Cadillac showroom is in, and then Immersive Van Gogh next door. This is what you guys have been very patient with us building, and I'm sure causing a lot of traffic that you may not have wanted from construction workers and cement trucks and things like that piling through your streets recently. But we have a few development sites in East Quarter, and we thought, just say, hey, how do we best use these development sites in context of the neighborhood around us? We're not in downtown, we're not in Deep Ellum, we're kind of in this no man's land between. And when we purchased these properties, there wasn't a name for the area of town we've occupied. We came up with the name East Quarter, simply because if you're fitting, it's on the east side of town, and a quarter in our mind was kind of a non-descriptive or non-specific swath of land. So this building is 20 stories tall, and the ground floor is retail, 25,000 square feet. And then what you see, the rest of this podium is 200,000 square feet of brand new office space. And on top sits an apartment tower with about 350 units. Our goal here was to say we need to add density, and the first question we got asked is, hey, where can people live in this area? So we wanted to have apartments. We wanted to add office for larger tenants that maybe need more than 20,000 square feet to be able to come. But we also wanted to do it in a way that was kind and of the scale of the buildings around us. So by right, we could have built a 40-story tower that went corner to corner on our property line and essentially shared a party wall with these townhomes. We chose instead to do a 7-story building that steps back 40 feet from the townhomes and then step back another 30 feet before we went vertical again. So you'd have this large shadow over the center of the town here. This is a view from Harwood Park, which Amy's going to tell you about, which we're very, very excited for. The office entrance is on Pearl, and the residential entrance, you actually enter through the old Millennial Electric building and connect to an elevator on the back, which takes you up 8 stories to the first floor of the apartments. There's a restaurateur in Dallas by the name of Nick Patavinas. If you've ever been to Neighborhood Services or Town Hearth, Montlake Cut, Offsite Kitchen, Desert Racer, he's got a few. But just a great Dallas restaurateur. We've partnered with him, and he's a full partner in East Quarter, which is awesome. He's going to bring 3 restaurant concepts to the former KLIF building, which was originally the Magnolia Petroleum building. So we've glassed in these arches, and on the ground floor, we'll have a restaurant called National Anthem, which is opening up in September. Second floor will be a very fun steakhouse called the Rib Room, and then the rooftop will be Bucket Hat Beach Bar, which is just a casual beer garden where you can come in suits or sweats. But we're excited for Nick to open up in September and bring that building back to life. There's a picture of Nick. Across the street from Nick is a restaurant going in called Etta. It's by a 2-star Michelin chef out of Chicago. We've partnered with him in the National down the street, the old 1401 Elm, First National Bank building, to do a restaurant called Monarch. So they're bringing Etta to East Quarter, which is a very fresh, fun, healthy food place. One more thing, this is kind of just what I touched on as far as the different uses that are going in there to color code them to give you an idea based on the complexity of the building. But we're very thankful for you all, and thanks for letting us come today. I'm going to turn it over to A.B. Meadows.
All right, good evening. I'm thrilled to be here. I've never had an opportunity to speak with my husband before, so this is very strange, and I hope our marriage remains intact. I am with Parks for Downtown Dallas, and let me start by saying who we are, because most people don't know who this organization is. We were created in 2015 from the Below Foundation, from the endowment of the Below Foundation. The Below Foundation was actually created in 1952 as the philanthropic companion of Below Corp and A.H. Below Corporation. And in 2013, the company was sold to Gannett, Below Corp was, and the foundation was standalone. And our trustees said, we want to make an impact on Dallas. We were funding in various areas, making grants in various areas. And they said we wanted to put all of our energy into making sure that the parks get built in downtown. And I will take you back just a little bit. We're still a 501c3. We were a 501c3 before. We were a private grant-making foundation. We converted to a private operating foundation so that we can actually accept charitable contributions. So we kind of sit in the middle of a grant-making foundation and a public charity, to give you a sense of where we are on that continuum. We believe very much in the value of parks. And this goes way back, all the way to G.B. Dealey, who is the founder of the Dallas Morning News, who brought George Kessler to Dallas and started beginning a discussion about parks. And Kessler actually designed Ferris Plaza. It's the only park we have in downtown that George Kessler designed. None of his other plans were realized. So let's jump to 2002, and you'll recall that Boeing rejected Dallas for its corporate headquarters and chose Chicago instead. And one of the things they said is they didn't like our downtown. That was a key part of this. So Laura Miller, mayor at the time, appointed our chairman, Robert Deckard, to be the chairman of the Inside the Loop committee to look at the CBD. So thinking about Dustin's map, that red circle, that's where we were focused in terms of what does downtown need. And they discovered that downtown had no plans for parks, any green space whatsoever. And we were a commercial district, concrete buildings, businesses, people came in and then they left at 5 and went away. So DDI has been absolutely instrumental in developing this whole concept of live, work, and play downtown. And you're seeing that now come up all around you. It's not just people coming downtown to work anymore. Obviously, 13,000 plus people are now living in the core. We have schools, we have restaurants, entertainment, et cetera. So we are part of that in terms of greening downtown. And we think that is a pivotal component to this work, live, play culture we're developing in downtown Dallas. So Dustin mentioned a couple of parks were built. The first plan was approved in 2004 by the city council, and two parks came out of that plan that came to fruition. Main Street Garden in November 2009, and that was done entirely by the city of Dallas, publicly funded and designed. We then built Below Garden. The city put in the 2006 bond program money for land acquisition and environmental work. And then we funded the design and the construction of this park. It's now known as Civic Garden. We just recently changed the name. And we're working on signs. So they still say Below, but they will be changed here soon. Civic Garden. So that was our first park we opened. And fortunately, we were able to build it at a time when the real estate market had, or I should say the construction market, the prices had dropped significantly. So we had a huge surplus, and we were able to create 2 endowments to help the city maintain this park. So we actually have a maintenance contract that we do some maintenance, but we also partner significantly with DDI. We are rather joined at the hip, and they do such important functions downtown, the security and clean team, and then on Civic Garden, we do all the horticulture management there. The second park we opened was Pacific Plaza, and this will go into our 4 parks that we are what we call the 4 priority parks. In 2013, the master plan was updated because a lot of things, Dustin kind of mentioned, all this change that was happening downtown. So the same landscape architecture firm came back to Dallas, looked at all what was happening here in the city, redid the plan, and identified 4 park sites. Pacific Plaza was in the 2004 plan, and it was also land acquisition money was in the 06 bond program. Trust for Public Land helped the city buy the land for this park, and then put a sign up that said, coming soon, and that was 2008. So you can see things working with the city, they're not actually speedy. They take a lot of patience, a lot of time. So this one we actually broke ground April 2018, opened it in October 2019. Coming into COVID, it was an interesting time, but I think it's shown that the value of parks, people need green space. And we saw people coming out of their buildings during COVID and using parks like this because you can distance, but you can be outdoors in the environment. And it's really, I think, very powerful. So Pacific was our first. And I would add that we funded in its entirety design and construction of this park as well. The city was trying to get ready to do a bond program. And we, as I said, converted in 2015. And so we told the city, okay, we can go ahead and get started on this project for you, and then you work on the bond program, and then we do want some bond dollars. So this was privately funded 100%. This is our next, I jumped. Westin Square was our first project under the development agreement that we have with the city. We're in a public-private partnership with them. And they put $35 million into the 2017 bond program to cover downtown parks. We had to match that. Our foundation has made a significant commitment, and then we have private donors that are also helping. But Westin Square was the first project that we did under that development. The city had money in the 2006 bond program, $4.4 million, to buy this site. They never bought it. So we stepped in and we used our funds to buy the entire site. By this point, the price had gone up to $8.6 million. So this little, less than an acre piece of land, but it is the only open space that was in the West End, and it was a surface lot. You'll see we take surface parking lots and turn them into green space, the flip of Joni Mitchell, right? So this was March of this year, we opened this park, and it has been busy ever since. And it's a very uniquely designed park for that community. And what we do with each of these parks is public input. We want to hear what those that live, work, and play around these sites tell us. And Westin Square, what you're seeing right there is a custom-made 50-foot work table embedded with chargers and outlets. And so people can come out of their offices and go outdoors and work outside. And it's got several other features in it, and including lots of shade. So the last one of the four that, before we jump into Harwood, is Carpenter Park. This is right up the street from you all, and I apologize, you're probably, your commute into the church may be impacted in terms of getting here. In part, that was because of a terrible flood that recently happened that we had nothing to do with, and the city has had to close Cesar Chavez for about a month, so I'm very sorry. I apologize to you now, and that's on the eastern edge, and we hope to get that open very soon. But this park will be the largest park in downtown Dallas. It's about 5.8 acres, contiguous land. It was a little park or a plaza called Carpenter Plaza that was dedicated in 1980, but you didn't know it was a park because you couldn't get to it. It was crisscrossed with all sorts of streets, and it had a piece of art, public piece of art, that ran north-south. This, you can see it. There we go. This is the piece of art now. It used to run north-south, and there were streets that actually crisscrossed all right in this area here. This sculpture is done by Robert Irwin, who is in his 90s now. He's considered one of America's most prominent site sculptors, site-specific sculptors in the country. And the city, when they did the reconfiguration of the streets, told that Mr. Irwin said, just throw my piece out, just throw my sculpture out. And I designed it to respond to 345. It was a north-south. There was a purpose in my design. And you're changing everything, and it's not going to be the same. So just go ahead and get rid of it. The art community in Dallas said, no, we cannot do this. We will be the laughingstock of the world, of the international art world. If we do this, we've got to figure out a way to save that. Fortunately, our landscape architects, Hargraves Jones, had a very close personal relationship with Mr. Irwin, and they were able to persuade him to redesign his piece. He's never done this before. So Dallas will become, I think, very well known for this sculpture. Underneath the freeway, you can't see it, but he designed two new pieces that are filigreed, giant Corten steel panels that were cut with a water laser. They're absolutely beautiful, and this will, I think, become a big draw for people to come to this park. It also has a giant fountain, play fountain here. These are gardens. There are paths around the whole park. There will be a basketball court, a single basketball court under here, the first dedicated basketball court in the urban core. And then there's going to be a dog play area here. And as I mentioned, this is 5.8 acres. And we don't know yet what will happen with 345, and we will adapt. And that's the way it's going to work with Carpenter. All right, so now we get to why y'all are interested in parks probably in the first place. And this is across the street from you on South Harwood, are a series of a lot of parking lots and a few buildings. We spent from 2014 to 2018 buying all of this property. 14, you said, Patrick, what, 26, 30, 35 parcels of property you had to buy. Okay, we had to buy 14 to get this park site. And we had to buy, in fact, one that we didn't want to buy, that building right there. We didn't really want to buy that building, but we wanted this little parking lot. And those were owned by the same people. So we now own this building, 412 South Harwood. It is in white, just like the South Pearl and the parking lot here at Ballet Dallas. And thank you to Donna and Ernie who are here. They are the most lovely neighbors that you would ever want to work with on any project, given especially what we're going to have to do to some of their plumbing coming up. So we're very grateful to work with them. But so you're aware, this is not in the park and neither is this. We will restore the exterior of this building and then we're going to put it on the market and sell it, and those proceeds will go into our endowment to help maintain this park. The rest of it, all of this is park property. We bought that, as I mentioned, and then we sold it back to the city and they purchased it with bond dollars from us, and then we reinvest those bond dollars in the design and construction of this park. So this is not as though we're making a real estate play here. It is really all philanthropic in its efforts and intent. This is Wood Street right now. So Wood Street, we have worked with the city council and closed this one block of Wood Street. So Wood Street right outside, I guess behind me, will dead end here at South Harwood, and you can go either direction, but you will not be able to continue through. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. Okay. Did I do something wrong, Michael? There we go. I moved on. Okay, so we're going to I'm just going to take you around the park site itself. This is at the corner of South Harwood and Jackson Street. I'd like you to take a look at this gold ring structure here. For those of you that remember, on Commerce Street, there was a parking lot that is now where Main Street Gardens sits, and it was covered in these large gold rings, gold metal rings. And those, when the park department demolished all the structures on the Main Street Garden site to build Main Street Garden, they saved all those gold rings. Our landscape architect for this project is Tenike Landscape Architects out of Austin, Texas. And Christy is an incredible artist, and she sees things in all sorts of historical items, and she designs with them. And so this is going to be a real unique feature for this park, this gold ring arbor that she's designed. And you hear another view of it. It's got a stage on the bottom, so we can have performances, yoga classes, etc. And it has its own lawn right in front of it. And that's behind it is the building Dustin mentioned that is the parking garage that's supposed to be residential, but it's not complete yet. They have a way to go. All right, so if we're staying on the north-facing side of the park, Jackson Street, this is the Garden Grove, which will have lots of seating, and it will be a great place for quiet time, eating, what have you. This pathway through the park goes all the way to Young, and it's vehicular rated, so we can bring food trucks in, for instance, if we want to serve the park in that manner. This is the main lawn, and we are grateful for our partners at Todd Interests because they have donated to name that lawn. So this is the East Quarter lawn, or whatever they choose to name it. But we are thrilled because it's just shy of an acre, and we've done this in 3 of the large parks, is make sure you have a large lawn because there's not a lot of green in downtown, and that's what we're trying to do, is green the city. Here is a view corridor of sitting in the grove and looking south towards the Scottish Rite Museum and Library. And you can also see the southern side of the park is the children's play area, and there is the promenade that comes along up Wood Street. I wanted to mention that promenade. Specifically, it's a rain garden, also known as a bioswale, and Christie does a lot of sustainable landscape architecture. So this will be a low density development here, or low impact, development. It will take all of the stormwater runoff. In fact, it's going to take Ernie and Donna's stormwater, and it will go into this bioswale, and it's a concave garden that will have an understory and various levels all the way up to trees, living off of that water, that stormwater that will come through there. And so we're really excited about that, and I know Christy is too, and especially if we link it to what else is happening downtown with City Lab High School. She believes, for instance, this will be a great opportunity to train students in low-impact landscape design. And it will be, I think, the only type of this, or one of the few in downtown. This, we know the Bush Center actually has a few in their parking lot, if you want to kind of see something similar. So now we go to the southern half of the park. Mentioned really for children and families. Dustin referenced that in terms of the farmers market. We've got the sport court that's going to be able to do all different kinds of sports. The park department, their highest request is for pickleball. So it will be striped for pickleball as well as basketball, tennis, etc. We've got a dog park right here. This is our whole children's play area, and you can see the mammoths. These are custom designed woolly mammoths that will be great playscapes, and they look like works of art. It's a European playground designer. We have found that Europeans are much more creative in their playground designs than Americans are. So Christy is working with a European designer. It will also have these wonderful diverse swings for all abilities there. And then we have a children's water feature splash pad area. Lots of seating all around. Another dog park. One, I think this was the big and this is the small, but we'll wait and see how that plays out. This is just a little seating area. 408 South Harwood. You all may remember the Petropolitan doggy daycare type that was in there. Well, we can't make this a restaurant. There's just no way after the previous occupant. So it was, it's being renovated, this building is, and it's being turned into the Park Services building. So there will be restrooms, a park office, et cetera, in that building. So these are just some precedent images of the sport court area. It also is vehicular rated, so we can pull food trucks or do a market or something on the court itself. Here's some another picture of the mammoths, and we started a blog. We're doing a 3-part blog post on the mammoth structures. We did our first one this week. We interviewed the director of paleontology at the Perot, and he's given us some great information. Mammoths actually did roam this area, and that's what Christy does, is she delves into the history of her project. So she went all the way back to when the Trinity, this is all running to the Trinity. You can see the various types of swings we'll be including in the swing area. As Dustin will tell you, he gets probably more requests for swings than anything else downtown. So we do meet with DDI regularly on our designs. And so I wanted to point the red line that goes right here. This is everything on this side is the Harwood Historic District. And so that meant everything on this side of the park, the western side of the park, we had to go to Landmark Commission on. So they have actually approved this park design as well. And you can see that 312 does remain. This was Pamela Nelson's old home and her studio. And right now, because we don't know what the purpose and the intent of that building will be, we are going to restore the outside and basically white box the building. We know it has great potential. It's a fantastic building, but the city is not, or I would say the park department, and this we were told by the director, so I'm not talking out of school, they are not really adept at real estate deals and transactions and finding tenants, et cetera. So we want to get the park opened, see how people use the park, and then determine what is the best and highest use for 312, because it also has to be a park-related activity because it's park property. So there are some rules that we have to follow as to we can't put a Nordstrom rack or something in there. That wouldn't work, that won't work. So we'll wait to see what happens when the park opens. And I mentioned 408 is the Park Services building. This front section is called out. You can see a wall here. We were designing a community space that we ultimately hope to be able to put in some interpretive exhibits, if you will, that talk about this neighborhood. Patrick mentioned the auto industry. We had the film industry. I know Michael will go into that because Encore Park is the same way, that some of these buildings, such as 312, were part of the film industry. And we're going to restore, as I mentioned, the existing faces of the building. So you can see this is Pamela's old home, and we'll try to clean it up and take it back to some of its old original looks. This, just so you know, those are ghost signs that were advertising automobile services at the time, and the Landmark Commission has asked that we retain them. And some more pictures of, this will be the north side of 408, the Park Services building. So you would enter here to the restrooms. And then you can see the change here on the front entry. And this is just taking you down the street of South Harwood. So this will be the trellis entering. So if you walked out of the church, you would come across Wood Street there. All right, so I just wanted to mention a little bit about our funding model, because I did let you know we are a 501c3. We have put in at this point around $56 million. 35 of that is from our foundation, and approximately 6.5 million is from Robert and Maureen Deckard personally, as well as the Deckard Foundation. So we have made a significant commitment to do this. We have also now launched a campaign to raise, over time, we recognize this will be a long journey, 25 to 50 million to ensure that these parks can be maintained, because city budgets, their maintenance budgets are somewhat challenging to count on, every year, right? So we want to be that backstop to ensure that all of these parks are maintained, because parks that are not maintained are liabilities, not assets. And we want to make sure that the greening of downtown is now an asset. And I mentioned that we have, let's see, 35 million in bonds from the 2017 program and the 4.4 million from the 06 program that covers the total of our commitment there. And this just breaks down how we have been spending our budget. Most of it, obviously, is construction, but we've had to purchase a lot of, both West End, Harwood Park sites, and then we've done planning and design work. So that gives you a sense of where we are. And I'm going to turn it over to you.